After Domingo and Violet got engaged, he was summoned to the border for a mission. Before leaving, he held Violet's hand and said, "Wait for me to come back. I will marry you." For this promise, Violet waited a lifetime. Until her dying moments, she heard the news that he had already married and had 4 generations under one roof. The narrow tile-roofed house was crowded with people. With her hair turned white, Violet lay in bed, refusing to close her eyes even in her final moments. She called out repeatedly, "Domingo." Some younger relatives, unable to bear it, squatted down and explained loudly to her, "Great-grandma, please don't call for him anymore. I heard from Grandpa that Domingo has long been married to a woman named Jenny, and he now has 4 generations under one roof." Upon hearing this, Violet's cloudy eyes froze. Immediately, several elderly people around sighed. "You are really stubborn. For over 60 years, Domingo has given you not a single word. Why are you still thinking about him? Violet, you have remained unmarried for him your whole life, ending up childless and alone. If it weren't for us relatives, you wouldn't even have anyone to see you off at the end. Yes, don't wait for him any longer. Just go in peace." Tears slid down Violet's cheeks, her vision slowly darkening, yet the voice in her ears remained clear. "Grandma Bai has passed away." After a loud shout, the sound of crying filled the air. Violet Bai listened to 3 days of swona and firecracker sounds, until all her senses finally faded away. 60 years of unrequited waiting, along with her withered body, were buried in the yellow earth. In 1963, Water Buffalo Village, the sound of firecrackers rang out again, startling Violet into a shiver. She came back to her senses and saw the newly written slogan on the brick wall, "Glory belongs to the 60s. Pride belongs to the laborers. This is the village branch. She has been reborn. Violet, the villagers have all come. We should go greet them." A strange yet familiar voice rang out, causing Violet's heart to skip a beat. She turned around and saw a man in a tall military uniform, handsome and with a gaze filled with infinite tenderness. Violet's constricted pupils trembled. "Domingo? It really is him. The fiancé she waited for until death." Before Violet could react, the blessings from the neighbors flooded in. Domingo became a camp leader at such a young age. "Violet, you will enjoy life from now on. You two have been close since childhood, and now you can be considered a couple at last. This time it's the betrothal wine, but next time you must remember to invite us for the real wedding feast." Domingo smiled in response, while Violet was drenched in cold sweat. She looked at the man beside her, the words she had heard just before her death still echoing in her ears. To wait for Domingo to return. She endured countless beatings from her father and nearly got sold off as a wife several times, suffering endless disdain and humiliation. For his words, "Wait for me to come back." She guarded her heart for a lifetime, only to receive the news of his 4 generations living together. No, she would not repeat the same mistake. Thinking of this, Violet withdrew her hand that had been held by Domingo. Domingo was puzzled, but seeing her face pale, he immediately became concerned. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Faced with his approach, Violet kept retreating. "I don't want to get engaged to you anymore." Her voice was not loud, but it was enough for him to hear clearly. Domingo was momentarily stunned, then pulled her aside, his expression serious yet helpless. "Violet, can you stop making a scene? We agreed that this year I would take leave to come back and get engaged. And when I return next year, we will get the certificate, and you will go with me to the station." Hearing this, Violet was overwhelmed with sadness. In the last life, he said the same thing, but in the end, he still abandoned her. Recalling how she waited day and night at the village entrance, Violet's gaze gradually became resolute. She tore off the festive red flower from her head, her voice hoarse. "Domingo, I will not wait for you any longer." After saying that, Violet threw away the red flower in her hand and ran away without looking back in front of everyone. Violet ran forward, but was quickly grabbed tightly by a large hand on her arm. "Violet, stop right there." Domingo held her back, his brows furrowed. "What on earth happened? Can't I even know?" Their eyes met, and Violet was momentarily at a loss for words. At this time in her past life, her relationship with Domingo was very deep. If she proposed a separation now, he would definitely not agree. But if I tell him that she was reborn and would be abandoned by him in the future, he definitely wouldn't believe it. Seeing her silent, Domingo became even more anxious. If you have any difficulties, tell me. I won't let you bear it alone. After a while, Violet finally managed to pull the corners of her mouth up. I had a dream last night. A dream? Under the man's puzzled gaze, she sank back into the memories of her past life. I dreamed that after our engagement, you received a mission to the border. Before you left, you told me to wait for you to come back and marry me, but you never returned. Everyone says you sacrificed yourself, but I don't believe it. I refuse to marry anyone else. My father beat me mercilessly and even wanted to sell me to the lame man from the neighboring village as his wife. In the days waiting for you, I sat by the village entrance watching that road every day, and I did so for over 60 years. Yet I still haven't seen you return. At this point, Violet's eyes revealed bitterness. Later, others told me that you had long married someone else, and now I don't want to waste my youth on you anymore. After hearing these words, Domingo was stunned for a while, then laughed in anger. That was just a dream. How can you give up on our feelings because of a dream? As he spoke, Domingo gently held her hand, his tone tender. Violet, I am a soldier. Unless I am dead, I will never betray you. Moreover, I haven't left you now. It's unfair to me that you won't be with me because of that dream. Violet remained silent, waves of emotion rising within her. Yes, in this lifetime, Domingo did nothing wrong. He hasn't made any mistakes. But she no longer had any intention of accepting him. Domingo, Just as she began to speak, Domingo interrupted her. If you haven't made up your mind yet, I can wait for you until you truly want to marry me. After a pause, his gaze became even more sincere. I vowed that in this lifetime, I would marry no one but you. However, Violet withdrew her hand and replied, lowering her head, I'm sorry, I have to go back first. After saying that, she turned and walked away. Violet could feel the man's piercing gaze behind her. Yet she only tightened her fists and quickened her pace. She could not look back. Nor would she. After more than 60 years of grinding, she didn't want to recall even a second. Just as Violet had steeled herself to sever ties with Domingo, she unexpectedly received a slap from her father as soon as she entered the house. You scoundrel! You ran away in front of so many people. Where do you think that leaves our family's face? If you don't marry Domingo, how will we have money to marry off your brother in the future? If you delay our family's good life, I'll skin you alive. Accompanied by his scolding, the stick fell heavily on Violet, knocking her to the ground, her face pale. In her past life, her father, beat her severely for not obtaining the betrothal gifts from Domingo, insisting that she marry the wealthy cripple from the neighboring village so her brother could have money to marry. She refused, and was locked in the house and starved for 5 days. The cruelest time. She was even sold deep into the mountains. Yet she managed to walk back step by step. She held on through countless torments, just to wait for Domingo to come back. Violet bit her lip in pain, her red eyes seeing her mother laughing with her brother in the room, even though they are of the same flesh and blood. Just because she is a girl, she cannot even have a full meal. Seeing Violet remain silent, my father thought she had given in, so he put down the stick. Tomorrow morning, you will kneel and apologize to Domingo before he changes his mind. Hurry and marry him, and bring the bride price. Violet curled up on the ground, her trembling hands slowly clenched. She now has only one thought, which is not only to leave Domingo, but also to leave this home. That night, the village was silent, with only a few barks from dogs. Violet carried a cloth bag, glanced at her sleeping parents and younger brother, and quietly walked out of the house towards the village entrance. If she continued to stay here, even if she no longer had to endure the torment of waiting, she would certainly be sold off by her parents to someone else as a wife. In order to live freely, she could only leave here as soon as possible, because she would pass by Domingo's home. Violet was particularly attentive. Just as she turned the corner, she saw a woman stumbling towards Domingo's door, knocking on it. By the light of the moon, Violet could see that the woman was about 18 or 19 years old, with somewhat disheveled long hair, stylish clothes, and wearing little leather shoes. She looked like a city girl. With a creak, the door opened. Domingo walked out from inside, and when he saw the woman outside, he was instantly stunned. Jenny? Hearing that name, Violet's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Jenny. Jenny. She was the woman she had heard about from her younger relatives just before her death. The one who was marrying Domingo. Violet stood in the shadows, clearly seeing Domingo's worry and fear on his face. Why did you come here? You're a girl. If something happens, how am I supposed to explain to the leader? Jenny choked up. I heard Dad say you came home to get engaged. Why didn't you tell me? As she spoke, her tears fell in large drops. Domingo, please don't leave me, okay? Domingo was momentarily at a loss. Please don't cry. Violet watched him reach out and then withdraw his hand, her gaze dimming. It turns out that everything has a trace to follow. On the night they were engaged in their previous life, Jenny snuck over to find Domingo. In this era, a woman would risk her own safety to come to this remote place for him, which shows how deeply she feels. Jenny looked at Domingo with longing. I heard that the woman you are going to marry is a well-known poor household in your village, and she is just counting on marrying you to eat from the public grain. After a pause, she slowly grasped his sleeve. And, does she treat you as well as I do? With true sincerity? Domingo did not pull his hand away. After a moment of silence, he replied, when Violet was beaten by her father and covered in wounds as a child, I promised her that when she grew up, I would marry her and take her away from here. Even though my feelings for her have not reached the point of marriage, I cannot go back on my word, especially since this is the quickest way for her to escape her father. A few brief words fell like heavy stones upon Violet's heart, causing her eyes to redden with pain. She finally understood why Domingo could leave her. It was because he had only ever felt pity for her. Yet she clung to that promise, waiting in vain for a man who did not love her at all. How ironic. Tears flowed uncontrollably, and Violet kept wiping them away. In her past life, she did not know how many tears she shed for Domingo, but this time it was only for the self that was wronged for a lifetime. Seeing Domingo bring Jenny into the house and close the door, Violet calmed her emotions and walked past his door without looking back. But just as she reached the village entrance, a sharp gong sounded behind her. Violet! Where the hell have you run off to? Violet is missing. Everyone help look for her. She is the lifeblood of our Bai family. Accompanied by Bai's furious roar, every household lit up with lights. Violet held her breath for a moment, her legs trembling as she stepped back. In the night, oil lamps gathered from all directions, slowly making their way towards her. The light was dim, yet she felt those tiny flames like a giant dragon ready to swallow her whole. Violet! Where are you? Listening to Bai father and the others calling, Violet felt a chill run down her spine. She took several steps back before turning and running, but it was too dark around her. She didn't notice and stepped on a piece of broken stone. Falling to the ground, the sharp pain radiating from her ankle made Violet gasp. As she watched them raise the lanterns closer, she found herself unable to stand, despair slowly engulfing her entire being. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared. When the other person approached, she realized it was Domingo. Before Violet could react, he picked her up and hid behind a haystack. The man shielded her with his body, the moonlight illuminating his brows and eyes, gentle and profound. Domingo, you, don't speak yet. Domingo interrupted in a low voice, his gaze warily watching the villagers coming and going, until the crowd had dispersed. He turned to the woman in front of him, her expression complicated. Violet, you first refused to get engaged to me, and now you're leaving at night. What's wrong with you? Violet bit her lip and initiative pushed Domingo away. I'm not worthy of you. Once you marry me, my parents and younger brother will depend on you. You have a bright future ahead, and I don't want to drag you down. Domingo was stunned. Violet looked at him, her voice a bit hoarse. I heard what you said to that woman. Childish words. You don't need to sacrifice your whole life for something you said as a child. As long as you leave here, I can live anywhere. I know you like her, and I will support you both. After saying that, She didn't look at Domingo's expression and lifted her leg to leave. But after taking just 2 steps, her wrist was tightly grasped. Violet, I never thought of you as a burden. Domingo looked at Violet's resolute face, a sense of frustration lingering in his heart. In his memory, she was timid, letting others make all the decisions. But today she seemed like a different person. Not only had she lost her former weakness, but the affection in her eyes for him had also vanished. Violet was silent. He did not deny that he liked Jenny. However, for her, his feelings were no longer important. All she sought was freedom. In the stalemate, it was ultimately Domingo who softened and advised, "If you must leave, then come with me." After a pause, his tone became gentler. "I took 3 days off to come back and get engaged. I have to return to my unit tomorrow. You should come with me to live in the city for a while, and I will handle things with your parents. If you still think highly of someone, I will help you find a job so you can live your own life." Violet looked into the man's sincere eyes, her heart filled with mixed emotions. Setting aside her own grievances, Domingo was truly a good man. Fate played its tricks, and one could only say they were destined to be apart. After weighing her options for a moment, Violet nodded. No matter what, she needed to leave this place first, to avoid being discovered by others. Domingo brought Violet back to his home, planning to take her and Jenny back to the county town the next day. As soon as she entered the house, Violet saw Jenny organizing Domingo's clothes like a true hostess. The two people's gazes collided. Jenny's eyes flashed with displeasure, implying, "Domingo, is she your poverty alleviation target?" Domingo did not blame her, just feeling somewhat helpless. "Jenny, don't talk nonsense." Then he looked at Violet, lowering his voice. "Don't argue with her. She is the leader's daughter, spoiled since childhood." Violet remained silent. She could see that Domingo's indulgence and protection of Jenny was something she had never experienced in her 2 lifetimes. Because Domingo's parents died early, leaving him alone in the family, he left the tidied room for them and went to the kitchen to make do with a wooden board. The night grew deeper. Violet lay against the wall, wide awake, half an arm's length away. Jenny unexpectedly spoke up. "Domingo doesn't like you. If you care about him, don't hold him back." Violet's gaze dimmed. She didn't want to argue with Jenny and knew clearly what she truly wanted at that moment. Just endure it. In 2 days, she would be free. The next morning, early, Domingo boarded the long-distance bus to the county town with Violet and Jenny. Violet just chose a window seat, but Jenny directly squeezed in and sat down. "Domingo, I don't feel very well," Jenny softly said, while casually pulling Domingo's seat beside her. Domingo felt a bit helpless and leaned over to help her open the window. Then he turned to look at Violet with a somewhat apologetic tone. "Jenny gets motion sickness easily, so let's take care of her first." Every word was meant to support Jenny. Violet gripped the bag tighter and silently sat down behind them. The car started and slowly drove away. Violet looked out the window at the endless wheat fields, filled with emotions. In her 2 lifetimes, apart from being sold to the other side of the mountain, she had never left the village and had no idea what the outside world was like. At this moment, she truly felt a sense of rebirth. In front, Jenny and Domingo were talking, discussing things she didn't understand. Violet saw a few children playing joyfully in the field, which reminded her of her childhood. At that time, she was 8 years old, beaten black and blue by her drunken father, while her mother coldly watched, holding her newborn younger brother. Only when her father was exhausted from hitting did she run out. She hid behind the haystack and cried, encountering Domingo, who was returning from grazing the cattle. Even after half a century of washing away her memories, Violet still remembered the boy's promise. He said, "Don't be afraid. I will join the army in the future, to defend the country and protect you." Fearing that she might not believe him, he extended his pinky and said, "Let's make a pact. When we grow up, I will marry you and won't let anyone bully you." Lost in thought, Violet's eyes turned red. The man she loved with all her life was ultimately an illusion. At that moment, Domingo suddenly got up and sat down beside her. Seeing her eyes red and swollen, he frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" Violet repressed the bitterness in her eyes and glanced at the already drowsy Jenny. It's nothing. In the silence, Domingo hesitated for a long time before reopening the conversation. Violet, is there something you're hiding from me? Violet was taken aback. He continued, ever since you didn't want to get engaged, you've changed completely, and you're no longer close to me. Domingo looked at her, his eyes filled with a subtle worry. Violet lowered her gaze. As she began to speak, Jenny murmured drowsily, Domingo, I feel so nauseous. Domingo immediately got up, adjusted her position, and opened the window wider. Just hold on a little longer. We'll be there soon. Faced with this scene, Violet looked out the window again, smiling through her tears, because those involved are often confused. Domingo will never know why she changed. 2 hours later, the three of them got off the train at the station. Domingo went to buy tickets, while Jenny persistently insisted on following him. Violet stood at the door, surveying the unfamiliar surroundings. Suddenly, a disheveled old woman tugged at her clothes and said, Young lady, have you seen my husband? Violet hadn't reacted yet when a nearby station attendant reminded her. Don't pay attention to that old woman. Her husband ran off with another woman 30 years ago, and she went mad, coming here every day to wait for him. Hearing this, her heart involuntarily tightened. This old woman was so similar to her from a past life. If she were to live this life as she did in the last, would she also end up like the old woman? Faced with the old lady's pleading gaze for answers, Violet glanced at Domingo, who was standing with Jenny. She brushed the dead leaves off the old man's shoulder and spoke softly. Don't wait for him. He won't come back. That afternoon, the three of them boarded the train to the city. Domingo and Jenny sat on one side, while Violet was seated opposite them. Domingo took out a handkerchief to wipe the seat and table before Jenny sat down. Domingo, you are so kind to me. You always remember that I like things clean. Jenny had a sweet expression on her face and cast a secretly pleased glance at Violet. Domingo wiped Violet's seat again, sighed, and said, Jenny is young. Don't hold it against her. Violet responded directly, she seems to be the same age as me. Domingo furrowed his brow and said nothing. After a series of whistles, the train slowly departed from the platform. Jenny continued to engage Domingo in conversation, deliberately discussing topics that Violet did not understand. Violet felt a bit annoyed and got up to look out the window at the train connection. The scenes outside the window, retreating one after another, resembled her slow and torturous life in the previous existence. Are you feeling unwell? Domingo followed along. Violet did not look at him. I have never been far from home. It feels new. After another moment of silence, Domingo gently took her hand. Violet, wherever you want to go in the future, I will accompany you. After a pause, he explained, I know you misunderstood my relationship with Jenny. My care for her is only because of the leader. If anything happens to her, I won't be able to explain it to the leader. Violet furrowed her brow. In just one short day, she had already seen clearly Domingo's preference for Jenny. She was about to pull her hand away when Domingo unexpectedly handed her a stack of money and food coupons. Is it not because of that dream that you refuse to believe me? Now I give you everything I have. This is all the allowance I've received since I joined the army. Violet was taken aback and hurried to return it. Domingo insisted on stuffing the money into her pocket. I will prove to you that I am not the person you saw in your dream. His gaze was sincere and passionate, burning through Violet's already hardened heart. If she had not been reborn, she would surely have been moved by this man. Yet the memories in her mind, along with Domingo's subconscious care for Jenny along the way, kept reminding her that she was the one who was not loved. Due to Domingo's insistence, Violet did not decline any further. The sky was getting dark. Jenny said she was hungry but did not want to eat the steamed buns they brought. So Domingo took advantage of the break at the station to go buy her a boxed meal. Just as he stood up, he looked at Violet. Violet, would you like one too? Violet shook her head. Seeing her refusal, Domingo did not say anything further. He hurriedly came up after buying food to open it for Jenny, even picking out all the chili peppers inside. The aunt beside them couldn't help but praise. This young man really knows how to take care of his wife. As soon as these words were spoken, Jenny blushed and smiled, while Domingo paused. as if realizing something, and quickly put down his chopsticks to look at Violet. But the explanation on his lips couldn't be uttered after seeing Violet's calm profile. She kept staring out the car window, as if completely indifferent to everything around her. Domingo furrowed his brow, feeling as if a stone was pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. Violet did not hear Domingo's denial, a sense of resignation passing through her eyes. To outsiders, Domingo and Jenny seemed more compatible. All she could do was to support them. The train continued forward. Throughout this journey, Violet did not say another word. Until the early hours of the next day, the train arrived at Taiping County. As dawn broke, the quiet carriage was filled with the sounds of snoring. Jenny was asleep against Domingo's shoulder, while the sleeping Domingo leaned slightly towards her. Violet glanced at him and gently tucked the food ticket that Domingo had given her into his pocket. Then she picked up her luggage and got off the train without looking back. Not long after, the train started moving. Violet stood on the platform, watching the train disappear before turning to walk in the opposite direction. Domingo, this farewell means we will not meet again. After getting off, she was greeted by the endless night. Walking out of the train station, Violet held a woven bag. Looking around, her heart filled with confusion. When she left, she was so focused on acting quickly that she didn't think about what to do after getting off. Fortunately, she had always been diligent in the past, and had some savings, though not much. She had never lived in the city in her previous life. Her understanding of urban life came from various platforms. After thinking for a moment, she found a guest house to stay in first. The guest house in the 1960s certainly wasn't in great condition. Violet lay down after washing up, carefully contemplating how to navigate her future. Now she had left Water Buffalo Village, and also left Domingo, just needing to survive for the time being. Taiping County is a nice place. I will look for a job tomorrow. For now, I will settle down here and think about the future later. As I pondered, my thoughts began to blur. Early the next morning, Violet left the guest house. She went to the hospital and several clinics, but they all turned her away due to her lack of work experience. It wasn't until she arrived at a pharmacy called Zhenhua Pharmacy that the owner, Zhang Zhenhua, looked her up and down. Where are you from? Violet said, I am from Water Buffalo Village in County A. Upon hearing that she came from the countryside and was quite attractive, he decided to let her stay and try working for 2 days. You can try for 2 days. If you do well, you can stay. If not, you can leave. If you stay, I'll pay you 10 yuan a month, with meals and accommodation included. Good. Violet agreed immediately. This pharmacy simply sells medicine. She only needs to dispense medicine when someone comes to buy it. Working 8 hours a day at the shop, with meals and accommodation provided. It was very suitable for her. Violet lived in the attic of the apothecary, which had 2 rooms, one for the owner and his wife, and a small storeroom that had been furnished with a bed for her. But fortunately, we have settled down. The population living in Taiping County is not small, and recently there has been a late spring chill, causing many people to fall ill, so there are quite a few coming to get medicine. So Violet basically stays busy from morning till night. Only in between did the boss lady call for meals. After a few bites, she would go back to the shop, working very diligently. Thus, the trial period passed. However, unexpectedly, on the 3rd morning, the boss lady left early, saying she was going back to her family home. Only the boss and Violet were in the shop. Violet was still busy to the point of not having her feet touch the ground. In her previous life, she was a barefoot doctor, and later the village wanted to give her a position, but it was taken by her brother's daughter Bai Ling. Bai Ling is her niece, and if she didn't work, she would face the same fate as Violet. Thus, Violet gave that position to her niece. In this life, I still do not know what her fate will be. After finishing her lunch, Violet took a short rest in her small room, but she heard a rustling sound, so she tiptoed outside to take a look, only to see her boss Zhang Zhenhua embracing a slender woman as they entered his and the boss's room. Why did it take you so long to find me? Shouldn't I wait until your mother tiger leaves before I come? Violet covered her mouth. This Zhang Zhenhua really has some nerve, bringing his lover home in broad daylight. She dared not make a sound and quietly returned to her room. I feel a pang of sympathy for the boss lady who cooks so well. Most of these men are fickle. Domingo is like this. And so is Zhang Zhenhua. Violet couldn't help but shake her head, feeling that it was all rather pointless. Just as she was about to continue her nap, she suddenly heard a sharp voice. Who is that woman? Then she heard a loud bang. Violet got up to open the door, and the scene before her made her pupils constrict. The boss lady Grace lay in a pool of blood downstairs, while the boss stood by, at a loss. Boss lady! Violet felt a sinking sensation in her heart and hurried down to check on the boss lady's condition. She hit her head and was bleeding profusely. Grace was in tears. Xiao Bai, help me, take your wife to the hospital. What are you standing there for? At this moment, Violet was so anxious that she forgot who the boss was and shouted at Zhang Zhenhua. I'll go get the money. While he hesitated, Violet took out a clean bandage to apply pressure to Grace's wound. Fortunately, the attic wasn't high, and the injury wasn't too severe. After stopping the bleeding, Violet used an iodine swab to disinfect Grace. It's okay. It's okay. Nothing's wrong. Violet comforted Grace. Grace had a severe headache, but she noticed that Violet's technique was quite meticulous. Good. Before long, Violet had treated Grace's wound. And at that moment, Zhang Zhenhua slowly took out some money. Let's go. Let's go. To the hospital. Grace glanced at Violet. Violet patted her shoulder. We need to get it checked. So the two of them went to the hospital together, leaving Violet to clean up the scene. By evening, only Grace returned. She was distraught. As soon as she entered the shop, she sat down in a chair, her gaze lost and unfocused. Violet let out a sigh in her heart. Grace must have come back early and bumped into her. Boss lady, have you eaten? Let me cook today. Grace shook her head. Thank you for today. I'll take you out to eat. There are restaurants on this street. Violet followed Grace inside. Grace asked her to order. Violet took care of Grace's injury and ordered some light dishes, such as stir-fried loofah. But Grace is a local from Taiping County, and she has always preferred strong flavors. She ordered spicy blood stew and stir-fried pig liver with garlic. Thank you for today, and I apologize for any embarrassment. After finishing these, Grace once again thanked Violet. Then she added, this restaurant belongs to my family. I want to divorce him now. And since you were brought in by him, I want to ask what your plans are? Violet felt a sinking feeling in her heart. Boss lady, are you going to fire me? The job I just got, is it going to be gone just like that? Grace looked at her anxious expression and, not knowing why, the tension eased. No, I just want to ask if you want to stay or leave. Of course I have to stay, although I was brought here by him. I have no other relationship with him. I've encountered men like him who are so fickle, and I absolutely despise people like that. Violet thought of Domingo and Jenny. In the last life, didn't he just become fickle when he met Jenny? As soon as the words fell, she noticed Grace with a troubled expression. Boss lady, when do you plan to get a divorce? Then she heard Grace say, I've already divorced. We didn't have a marriage certificate, so it's his fault, and we've agreed to part ways. Violet clicked her tongue. In fact, during the 1960s, women's thoughts were gradually being liberated, and many women dared to love and hate. If only that catastrophe 3 years later had not occurred. Moreover, at that time, many people did not have marriage certificates, so divorce was quite simple. Unlike in 2024, where getting married only requires a marriage certificate, and divorce involves a cooling-off period, as if trying to trap people in marriage. Congratulations. Boss lady, Violet said. As they were talking, the dishes arrived. After the two finished their meal, they returned to the shop, where only Violet and Grace were left. Since Grace still needed to recover, Violet was even busier, but she really enjoyed this kind of tangible busyness. Grace's injury gradually healed, and Violet accompanied her to negotiate prices at the pharmacy, comparing several suppliers and learning a lot. As Violet worked so hard alongside her, Grace did not shortchange her and raised Violet's compensation. Thus, 2 years passed, and Violet was already 22 years old. Violet had saved up some money and had also passed the medical qualification exam. Grace also took the nurse certification exam, and she and Violet planned to turn this pharmacy into a small clinic. But just then, the war to aid North Vietnam against the US broke out. After the order to recruit logistics volunteers was issued, Grace asked Violet for her opinion. Violet was taken aback. This war was the war that separated her from Domingo. It was a war that had to be fought. Grace, this war may last a long time. By the time we look back to set up the clinic, the flowers will have wilted. This battlefield lasted for 11 years. Perhaps they could return midway. But by then, everything would have changed. If you are going, you must be prepared to lose everything. Grace nodded. If you don't care about these gains and losses, what do you think? Is it worth it to not care about these gains and losses? Of course. I also want to contribute my own strength to my country. Violet wants to settle down and knows that the country will be able to provide them with a stable life in the future. But right now they are still laying the groundwork. In the last life, she lacked the ability. In this life, she has no reason to back down. Grace greatly admires Violet and patted her shoulder. Then let's go. The two closed the shop and resolutely set off on their journey, following the organization back from Mingzi to a small valley at the foot of the Huanglian Mountain in Vietnam. Violet, several wounded have just arrived from the front line. You need to prepare for surgery immediately. The medical team leader urgently arranged for Violet, because Violet had a middle school education and was quite capable, shining brightly as soon as she arrived. But what followed were endless surgeries. Grace was in the nursing team, but not in the same place as Violet. After a year and a half, the medical team that Violet was part of was assigned to the most intense and dangerous areas of the conflict due to their outstanding capabilities. In these days, Violet was so busy that she hardly had a moment to rest. Little did anyone notice that the Cultural Revolution had quietly begun in the country. It was the Mid-Autumn Festival, and a wounded soldier had his eyes injured by an explosion, his face covered in blood. Although Violet had seen many scenes, she couldn't help but tear up each time. She gently directed the nurses to clean up while preparing the surgical instruments. Suddenly, the wounded soldier spoke. "Doctor, if the anesthesia is to be administered to my head, can I skip it? Skip the anesthesia?" Violet shook her head. "You won't be able to endure that kind of pain." The wounded soldier's voice was resolute. "I can't. My company commander is still on the front lines. If I take the anesthesia, it will cloud my thoughts, and I can't let him fight alone." Violet sighed. "Don't say such foolish things. Your company commander wouldn't want you to suffer like this. The anesthesia nowadays is indeed not very good, with considerable side effects. But in this era, having any is better than nothing. So why be picky?" But the wounded soldier insisted. Otherwise, he would refuse treatment. This was the first time Violet encountered such a situation. She had the nurse first stop the bleeding and went to consult the medical team leader, Chin Chu. Chin Chu seemed to recognize the wounded soldier. "You continue to persuade him, and I will find someone to persuade him as well." Violet nodded and returned to the waiting area to check on the wounded soldier's condition. When it was his turn for surgery, Violet was pushing him to the operating table, but he remained very stubborn. "Bye, doctor. Please. I really can't afford to injure my brain. Doctor, just give him anesthesia directly." While Violet was thinking about how to persuade him, she heard a strong and resonant voice behind her. Her heart sank. How could she encounter Domingo here? Violet turned around, and the man walking towards her was in a military uniform, more mature and composed than he had been 3 years ago. His face bore scars of heartbreak, and his skin was even darker. Domingo narrowed his eyes slightly, somewhat incredulous. In his impression, Violet had no medical skills at all. Violet didn't dwell too much on her thoughts. She guessed that Domingo was probably the company commander of this wounded soldier. She turned to the wounded soldier and said, "Did you hear? Your company commander has spoken." Saying this, she quickly pushed the person into the operating room. Domingo looked at the closed door of the operating room, his heart in turmoil. It really was Violet. Since she escaped from the train 3 years ago, he has been searching for her for 3 years. He thought, Violet. Although she had read some books, she had never traveled far. Perhaps she had gone back. He returned and searched the water buffalo village thoroughly but found no one. How could she be here? How could she be in this most dangerous place? What happened to her afterwards? These doubts lingered in Domingo's mind. The person he had been searching for 3 years was so close, yet he could only suppress these thoughts. After all, his good brother Jack was still in emergency care. 5 hours later, Jack was pushed out. Violet wearily followed another doctor out, while Domingo only glanced back at her as he followed Jack. But Violet kept her head down, removing the plastic gloves and avoiding his gaze. The surgery is over, and there is still more to do after lunch. This is her life now, and it has already been 3 years. Domingo and Jenny must have gotten married by now, right? In the evening, after finishing the last surgery, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. Violet had a little porridge and then prepared to go to sleep, thinking again about checking on the wounded. I went but found that Domingo, this company commander, had been guarding Jack all along. When Domingo heard the footsteps, he turned around and saw Violet, just about to speak when he was interrupted by a wounded soldier. By doctor, will my leg be okay? I still want to kill a few more enemies. Violet smiled slightly. Don't you trust my skills? The wounded soldier also forced a smile. They say the medical team's by doctor has miraculous hands. But I'm just worried. You will get better. Don't be afraid. We will definitely achieve victory. By doctor, you are such a nice person. I really like this kind of honest girl. If you're not married, consider me. I have plenty of money at home. The injured person spoke slickly. Violet was not angry. It was common for people to make such jokes here, and she simply smiled faintly. Just as she was about to say something, she saw Domingo walk over, and he tapped the injured person's wound, causing the patient to scream in agony, while those nearby who hadn't slept burst into laughter. Who gave you permission to tease the medic? Domingo looked sternly, his expression commanding respect, and the injured person quickly quieted down. Company commander, I was just joking with her. I won't dare next time. Violet said nothing and went to check on Jack's condition. Jack's eye was saved, but the vision was uncertain. It depended on the recovery situation. At this moment, he had already regained consciousness and, seeing Violet arrive, expressed his gratitude. Thank you. Bye, doctor. I only realized that if I had delayed any longer, I would have lost this eye. Violet looked at his wound and replied normally. Then you should thank your company commander. If he hadn't come, your eye would indeed have been lost. After saying that, she went to check the next bed, yet her peripheral vision did not overlook the man sitting in front of Jack's bed. He was also looking at her. Suddenly, a thought crossed her mind. Domingo wouldn't be waiting here just for her, would he? Sure enough, Domingo was walking towards Violet step by step, and she wasn't very keen on dealing with him. As he was about to leave, he heard someone report, Company Commander, urgent situation. In the next moment, Domingo glanced at Violet and left without saying a word. Violet still did not feel a sense of relief. They have an emergency, which means they should also have an emergency. So he turned around and waited. I probably won't be able to sleep tonight. Returning to the medical station, I heard the team leader Jordan begin to deploy the mission. Violet, you arrived just in time. This is the new Miss Mao, and she will be your assistant. Miss Mao? Violet focused her gaze and realized that the familiar face before her was Jenny Mao. What is a wealthy young lady doing in such a dangerous place? Jenny was equally surprised to see Violet here. Pointing at her, you, how could you be here? Jordan glanced at them. Do you know each other? Violet understood that Jordan was urging them, nodded, and said to Jenny, come with me. She guessed that Jenny was probably chasing after Domingo. Although Jenny was reluctant, she knew that this was not a place where she could act willfully. So she followed Violet into the inner room. As soon as they entered, Violet handed the military uniform to Jenny, who was still wearing a dress. I don't know what extraordinary ability you used to get here, but let me tell you, this is not a place for you to act like a young lady in a dress, nor is it a place for romantic encounters. Here, every wasted minute could mean missing the best opportunity to rescue an injured soldier. All right, Go change your clothes. Although Jenny was warned repeatedly by the person assigned to come before her to listen to her superiors, she was inherently a spoiled young lady, especially when her rival was right in front of her. Can you even speak? So bossy. I'm telling you, I came here for Domingo. We're getting married soon. I want to be with him through thick and thin. She declared her sovereignty word by word, provocatively looking at Violet. Violet was somewhat speechless, tugging at the corner of her mouth. So, what does that have to do with me? Hurry up and change your clothes. If you're not changed within a minute, I'll tell Captain Jordan that you disobeyed orders and have you sent back. I'll change. Jenny, hearing this, quickly replied. After going out, Jordan waved to Violet, who walked towards him. He was wearing a mask, leaving only a pair of bright, expressive eyes. Thank you for your hard work in bringing a newcomer. I had no choice. The organization sent someone to Guild. Violet smiled and said, It's fine. I know her. If anything happens to her, we can just go back. Gilding or whatever also depends on whether one has that fate. Jordan nodded, all right. Behind the door, Jenny never expected Violet's thoughts to be so malicious. She must quickly find Domingo. Domingo is the company commander here. Back then, Violet just ran away like that, which made him very angry. He searched for her for 3 years, but I wonder if he has found her now. Jenny slapped her forehead. Duh, I'm so stupid. If she hasn't met Domingo yet, then I just exposed that Domingo is here. As soon as she finished speaking, they heard a knock on the door. Are you coming out? I'm counting to 3, 2. Jenny had no time to think and hurriedly went out. Violet let out a playful smile, so you can understand human speech. Huh? After saying that, she turned and went to the injured soldiers' camp, and Jenny could only follow her. But as soon as she entered the injured soldiers' camp, a strong smell of blood hit her. Violet's smile instantly vanished. Jordan patted her shoulder and said, We need to hurry. And Jenny could only glance once before running to the side to vomit. Violet couldn't pay her any mind and joined her colleagues in saving the wounded. By the time they were done, the sky had already brightened. The relief team arrived. Violet returned to the shabby dormitory, where Jenny lay on the previously empty bed, sleeping soundly. Violet was already so exhausted that she fell asleep immediately, but by the afternoon, she woke up, disturbed by Jenny's screams. There were other female doctors in the dormitory, all of whom woke up. What is it called? The female doctor Zoe couldn't help but get out of bed in a bad mood. Violet only then noticed that there was a palm-sized spider at Jenny's bedside. There's a spider. I'll take care of it. You keep sleeping, she reassured Zoe, who replied with an and went back to sleep. Jenny was so scared that she shrank into the corner of the bed, while Violet swung the broom at the bedside, causing the spider to fall onto her pillow. You quickly take it away. How am I supposed to sleep tonight? For a moment, Violet's morning grumpiness was provoked by her sharp voice. She even thought about throwing the spider at Jenny, but she held back. Zoe couldn't help but exclaim, You can't sleep and won't let others sleep? What are you doing here on the front lines? So spoiled? Is one spider too much to handle? Zoe hadn't slept for a day and a night. She seemed furious now, throwing off the blanket, snatching the dead spider from Violet's hand, and tossing it onto Jenny's face. I tell you, there are not only spiders here, but also snakes, insects, and mice, plenty of them. Violet was stunned. Zoe had always been gentle, but she never expected her to be so provoked. She quickly pulled Zoe over. Don't be angry for now. Just sleep for a while. But Zoe's emotions had already erupted, and it was hard to contain. When will this war ever end? I really can't stand the endless work day and night. She was in tears, and the others who were awakened could only sigh. The front lines are suffering, and so are they. Those who came later said that the situation at home is even worse. Violet held Zoe in her arms with compassion. It will end. We will win. In the future, both we and our country will have a beautiful future. If you're sad, just cry. Holding it in isn't good for your heart. In fact, Violet has always said little here, partly because she is too exhausted from saving people every day, and partly because she doesn't know what to say. It's not just her. Many of the medics here are like this. She only realized after coming here how hard it was to maintain her stable life in the small village. No one cares about Jenny anymore, because as soon as the medics wake up, it's a new round of saving lives. After witnessing the morning scene, Jenny consciously changed her clothes and silently followed Violet from behind. Before she came, she had undergone some training, and whatever Violet asked her to do, she could keep up. However, she seemed to be quite afraid of Zoe, and Zoe really didn't like her either. But when things get busy, who has the time to care about who is who? Another long night has passed. Violet returned to the dormitory, and Jenny went back to find that her pillow had been replaced, while the original one had already been washed. Violet walked in from the balcony. Jenny was silent for a long time. Violet, the patient in bed 3 passed away today, due to an infection. Before he breathed his last, he said he was not fortunate enough to marry you. Thank you. Zoe entered, her eyes slightly red. Violet instantly had tears welling in her eyes. Zoe was talking about that wounded person who had joked with her, but she didn't let the tears fall. Here, there had been too many partings and deaths, and she couldn't cry. At that moment, a loud bang echoed. Mud and sand began to fall from the top of the medical station, and outside, someone shouted, "Retreat quickly! The bombers are coming! Run first!" Everyone here, except for Jenny, has evacuated urgently. Violet, without a word, grabbed Jenny and ran towards the door. The corridor was filled with people, and this building was leaning precariously. It would collapse soon. Everyone is still evacuating in an orderly manner. The evacuation speed is extremely fast. They hid in the safe fortress. Jenny, having never experienced such a hail of bullets, let Violet pull her along as she ran. Suddenly, a thought crossed her mind. Has she really lived like this all these years? With her busy days filled with anxiety, does she still think of Domingo? Once inside the underground fortress, she could only hear the roar of fighter jets overhead. Violet took a deep breath, released Jenny's hand, and said, "In the future, if you encounter a situation, just hide inside the safe fortress. Preserve your life, and you will have a chance to be with your Domingo for a long time." Jenny heard this and her pupils dilated. You are not her fiancé, are you? How can you say that? Violet exchanged a smile with Jordan, who was looking over from that side, as a way of signaling that she was safe. Didn't you know that I left him on the spot when I got engaged? You even chased him to the village, wanting him to be with you. As soon as these words were spoken, Jenny turned pale. How do you know? Violet found herself a bit unable to understand Jenny. Sometimes she thought she was quite excessive, and other times she found her rather adorable. What should I do? That night, I just happened to see it. Jenny instantly blushed. You must not tell anyone. I don't want to compete with you for a man. I just can't bear to see him suffer that kind of humiliation. I want him to feel that he is actually wonderful. Even if you don't want him, there will still be me who loves him. Violet, upon hearing this, couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Jenny is not a bad person. She was a bit spoiled, or as people say in later generations, she was a bit love-struck. But her love is passionate. No wonder Domingo would be moved. If it were her, she wouldn't hate Jenny either. Whether or not we are stealing a man is no longer important. Right now we need to find a way to survive. Only by living can we qualify to discuss anything else. So you should put away your little princess temper. Everyone's nerves are stretched tight every day. Zoe won't be the last person to have an emotional outburst. Jenny instinctively clutched Violet's sleeve. You wouldn't abandon me, would you? Her words made Violet unable to help but laugh. Who knows? Maybe one day I will. She was so frightened that she quickly withdrew her hand. I understand now. Humph. Domingo will protect me. A few hours later, the bombing outside stopped. Someone returned from reconnaissance and said, it's over. But the medical station has been destroyed. Violet and others walked out. The medical station had been reduced to ruins, but the injured soldiers' camp was built beneath a safe fortress, so they only needed to run for themselves. Captain Jordan. Captain Ku has called a meeting. Jordan looked at the medics and waved his hand. Post-war emergency aid. The so-called post-war cleanup involves some people checking for new injuries. While logistics personnel rushed to salvage usable medical resources, Violet arrived at the injured soldiers' camp, ready for another round of emergency care. After finishing up, Jordan returned as well. Accompanying him was Domingo Ku. Captain Ku finished the meeting with us and came to check on the situation here. Domingo. Before Jordan's voice could fade, Jenny rushed into Domingo's arms like a gust of wind. However, Domingo's gaze was solely fixed on Violet. Jordan, standing at 6 feet tall, was momentarily stunned. Let's go first. Violet pulled at Jordan's sleeve. He understood the situation and snapped back to reality, ready to follow her. In the next moment, Violet's hand was grabbed by Domingo. Are you okay? Violet had no ripples in her gaze. I'm fine. She's fine. Captain Ku, please don't worry. Domingo wanted to explain. I didn't know she would come. Violet smiled slightly. She's very brave. Cherish her well. Jordan finally understood that Domingo cared about Violet. But since Violet came here, she had never mentioned knowing Captain Ku. Now being pulled by this surgical partner, who had cooperated with him the best, he couldn't help but feel his heart race a little. What he said was serious. Violet, we need to have a meeting soon, before long. Except for Jenny, who was still talking to Domingo, everyone else had come to the meeting. Jordan was covered in dirt, but there was no time to change. The medical station has been destroyed, and we need to retreat 10 kilometers behind Wolf's Tooth as the front line advances. But there is no medical station over there. We need to build one manually. The next period will be very tough, and I hope everyone can hold on. Since we are at the front line, no one is a coward, and everyone agreed one by one. But when the hard days truly began, everyone realized that the two words hardship were infinitely cumulative. They are retreating to a large ravine at Wolf's Tooth Mountain. Manual logging, transporting the iron frame to the selected site, and setting up a simple medical station were surprisingly completed in less than a month. During this month, Jenny has been following everyone, doing some light tasks. Violet and Zoe and the others had already worn their hands raw, and after healing, their hands were covered with thick calluses. When the Wolf's Tooth Mountain Ravine Medical Station was completed, the period was relatively stable, and the enemy had not advanced. Now they have retreated to the mountains and forests. In terms of guerrilla warfare, the enemy simply cannot compete. The medical station can finally breathe a sigh of relief. But ever since the retreat, Jenny's nightmare has only just begun. In the Wolf's Tooth Mountain Trench Medical Station, she encountered all the snakes, insects, rats, and ants that Zoe had mentioned. She was on high alert every day. And just as the organization had an opportunity to rotate personnel back to the front, Violet suggested that Jenny return. But Jenny was unwilling. After all this time, do you still look down on me? I don't look down on you. It's just that you're not suited to be here. If you're only here for Domingo, then you should go to the logistics department instead of occupying a spot in the medical station. Can't you see my progress? I have also contributed to building this place, and I have saved many people. Jenny felt wronged. Why do you only know how to deny me? You have indeed done these things, but we need more mature personnel, not someone we have to distract ourselves to protect. You have made contributions, but when you lost the team and got lost, we still had to go find you. You saved people, but your supervision was inadequate and almost led to someone not being saved. Jenny lived in a greenhouse. The trip to Water Buffalo Village was the farthest she had ever gone. And Jordan told Violet that Jenny came here without her parents knowing. Now her parents have written to her, asking her to return. Otherwise, they will hold her accountable. She is now Violet's person. Of course, it was Violet who sent her away. Jenny heard this, her eyes brimming with tears. Am I really so worthless in your heart? Violet was taken aback. Yes, so you should leave. After saying this, Violet went back. On the way, she happened to run into Jordan bringing in the injured. Seeing Violet, he waved. Violet, come see this hand of his. It's broken to the bone. The two discussed treatment plans together, entered the injured soldier's camp, and had no time to care for Jenny. But Jenny looked at her retreating figure, her heart filled with mixed emotions. She wanted to find Domingo. Yet, thinking of how Domingo was very busy and also quite distant from her, She didn't know what to do. Feeling dejected, she turned and walked down a small path to clear her mind. Early the next morning, Violet received the news that Domingo was seriously injured. Captain Ku has been shot. Jordan and Violet urgently went to Domingo's tent, only to find him lying on the bed, pale and bloodless. Captain Ku is losing a lot of blood. He needs a transfusion. Captain Ku is type B, but we currently do not have enough plasma in storage. Type B blood? I'm type B blood. Take mine, Violet quickly said, and as soon as she spoke, the other soldiers also said they were willing to donate blood to Captain Ku. So the surgery was performed by Jordan and Zoe on Domingo, because Violet fainted right after giving blood. She was too exhausted. By the time she woke up again, it was already evening, and Domingo's operation was likely finished. When Zoe returned, she checked on Violet's condition. Are you feeling any better? Violet nodded. I'm fine now. I can work. How is Captain Ku? Zoe pressed her down. It's fine now. The bullet has been removed. You need to take good care of yourself. Captain Jordan asked me to tell you that your body is about to give out. Why don't you go back? Go back? Can she go back? It is currently the time of the Cultural Revolution in the country. She doesn't really want to go back. But she has indeed been unable to cope with her health here over the past few years. She had donated blood before and had never fainted. Violet sighed. Let me think about it. Another day passed. Jordan came to find Violet to check on Domingo, who had woken up, his upper body wrapped in bandages, wearing a coat. How do you feel? Violet finally took the initiative to speak to him. Domingo was momentarily dazed, having walked a path between life and death. He also had a dream. He dreamed that he and Violet were engaged, but their wedding was delayed because he had to go to war. He asked Violet to wait for him, but upon his triumphant return, he found that Violet was already married, and Jenny risked her life for him. In order to be responsible to Jenny, he married her. In the end, he discovered that Violet had never married in her entire life, waiting for him all along, and even in her last moments, she still thought of him. Domingo discovered that this dream was exactly as Violet had described it at the beginning, and the feelings were incredibly real. Could it be that this was the dream Violet had at that time? Was this also the reason she had been pushing herself away? Unconsciously, the corners of his eyes turned red, not knowing if it was due to the pain or the sorrow in his heart. Domingo looked up at Violet, his eyes filled with infinite affection. I'm fine. Jordan glanced at Domingo and Violet, saying, you two chat. I'll go check on the injured. Perhaps seeing Domingo like this, Violet no longer wore a cold expression. The captain said you are seriously injured, and you need to rest well. Don't think about the war for now. Hearing this, Domingo became somewhat anxious. That won't do. The front line is in a tight spot. Violet pressed him down. Nothing is more important than being alive. If something happens, they will still come to ask you. Domingo truly couldn't move and could only lie there. After a moment of silence, Violet was about to leave when she heard Domingo's voice. Last night, I also had a dream, dreaming that you waited for me a lifetime. What? Violet frowned. Speaking was somewhat laborious for Domingo, but he still wanted to share his dream with Violet. I said, I dreamed of you, waiting for me my whole life. I told you to wait for me. But when I returned from the war, I found out you had already married. The villagers said you married into Apply Mountain. Violet stunned. Apply Mountain? Apply Mountain? The very place where my parents last sold me to exchange for a bride price for my younger brother. What happened next? She asked again. Later, I went to find your parents, and they said I returned too late. You had already fallen in love with someone else. A woman's youth is only a few years. And I was the one who delayed you. I felt very guilty. I went to Apply Mountain but didn't see you. However, that family said you were doing well, and I didn't dare to disturb you again. Is that so? Violet asked him again. So you later fell in love with Jenny and married her? No, I never loved her, but she seemed determined to be with me, no matter what. Later, during a battle, she was injured. Her parents begged me, asking me to stop tormenting her. pleading with me to marry her and take care of her. She was indeed injured while trying to find me. I had no way to refuse, so I married her. After hearing this, Violet's face lost all color. But she also knew very well that Domingo was truly dreaming. But I have truly experienced it. Seeing her silent, Domingo was very curious about what she was thinking now. Violet, I have been looking for you for 3 years. And now we have spent another half a year here. I don't want to miss you again, okay? Violet didn't expect him to suddenly say this again, and instinctively wanted to refuse. But she heard a bang, and Jenny dropped the porcelain box in her hand, then looked at them in disbelief before turning and running away. Violet sighed, I'll go see her. Violet found Jenny when Jenny was crying so hard her eyes were swollen, and handed her a handkerchief. Don't cry. Jenny didn't answer, choking back tears as she said, You want me to leave? Clearly just so you can be with Domingo. Why are you so two-faced? I hate you. Violet shrugged, think what you want. You can stay here. I'm getting ready to move. Where are you going? Hearing that she was leaving, Jenny immediately stopped crying. Violet thought for a moment, I don't know either. Let's see how the organization arranges it. You can't leave. What will I do if you go? Jenny, this time I'm really in a hurry. Violet confused, aren't you here to find Domingo? If I leave, won't you be the one to gain his favor first? Jenny remained silent upon hearing this. The reasoning was clear, but she had been following Violet all this time. If she left, how could she bear to stay alone? But I just don't want you to go. She fidgeted and only managed to say this one sentence. Violet felt a bit weary, having lived for over 80 years. How could she not see through a young girl? Jenny, don't you have the courage to be reckless for yourself? Don't put all your thoughts on one man. In the end, the man he loves most is definitely himself. You should plan a bit more for yourself. With your abilities and appearance, you are more suited for artistic work. You should either return to the cultural art troupe or become your own young lady. But do not sacrifice your life for a man here. She felt that she could only express so much about Jenny. Jenny stood frozen in place. At that moment, many things shattered and reassembled in her mind. Violet followed the organization's arrangements and was assigned back to guard the border at Suna River Town, located between China and Vietnam. She really wanted to send Grace some news, but it was wartime now, and it was very difficult to communicate between two places thousands of miles apart. Jordan went to deliver Violet, handing her a letter. Violet, you are returning to Suna River Town, and I am from Suna River. Could you please deliver a letter to my uncle and aunt? Violet asked in confusion, why not to your parents? A hint of barely perceptible sadness crossed Jordan's eyes. My parents passed away when I was 7. I was raised by my uncle and aunt. They run a breakfast place called Suna River Breakfast. It's easy to find. Violet nodded, looking at the captain who had taken care of her in many ways, feeling a sense of reluctance rise in her heart. Live well. I will wait for you to come Suna River to take me to see the scenery. Jordan was momentarily brightened, but then suddenly dimmed, suppressing something. If I can come back alive, I will definitely. Violet stood on tiptoe and patted his shoulder. Then I'm leaving. Aren't you going to say goodbye to Captain Ku? Jordan asked tentatively. Violet thought for a moment. What you said makes sense. She turned and walked into the injured soldiers' camp. Watching her back, Jordan suddenly felt he had said too much. In the camp, Domingo was looking at the map. Seeing Violet arrive, he quickly put down the map, fearing she would say something, but he didn't expect that Violet's first words today would be, I'm leaving soon. Take care of your injury. Domingo's heart sank. Return to the homeland for garrison duty or change locations? Return to the homeland for garrison duty, Violet answered. Domingo asked, where will you be stationed? Violet thought for a moment, still waiting for arrangements. They said they would notify us on the way. In fact, after going through so much, she no longer wanted to avoid Domingo. But some things still required time to digest and accept. If everything in his dreams is real, then God is truly playing tricks on him. Everything is just too ridiculous. Domingo's gaze darkened. You still want to avoid me. Avoiding or not, it doesn't matter. Domingo, you should cherish the person in front of you, right now. I can't trust or love you like Jenny does, Violet said. She has witnessed so much life and death. Nothing is more important than being alive. Regardless of love, I will come to find you, Domingo suddenly said, his quiet eyes now shining brightly. Violet, you are the wife I have chosen. If your dream and my dream truly form a complete story, then it must be a warning for me. Warn me that I must not give up on you. If you don't want to reveal your whereabouts, I won't force you. But no matter where you are in the world, I will find you. If you get married, I will wait for you. If you are single, I will do everything I can to be with you. Violet, the road back is not safe. Take care on your journey. Don't worry about me. I will take good care of myself too. Violet, upon hearing his series of words, felt as if a stone had been thrown into the long silent lake of her heart, sending waves soaring high. Domingo, you still haven't learned. Do not make promises lightly. I will no longer believe. Domingo seemed immune to Violet's words. It's okay, Violet. You don't have to believe it. I will prove it to you. For some reason, Violet suddenly felt a pang of bitterness deep in her heart. She had a vague sense of fear. She was afraid that Domingo's dream was the truth. It is already the year 1968. The morning in Sooner River Town is warm and gentle. In the border town, after having breakfast at her Aunt Jordan's diner, Violet was about to go to work. Dr. Bai, take these buns with you. You treated me yesterday and didn't charge me. I feel quite embarrassed. Aunt Amy Jordan handed Violet a paper bag. Violet received it. Aunt, you are too polite. After giving a few more reminders, Violet went to work at the health clinic. As soon as she entered the health clinic, the gatekeeper, old Zhang, called out, Dr. Bai, you have a letter. Violet received the letter and thanked him. She walked into the office, opened the letter, her expression excited. It was actually sent by Grace. Violet, my sister, as I write to you, I have been assigned to Wolf's Tooth Mountain and discovered that you have returned to the border. Knowing you are well puts my mind at ease. When I return, we will discuss our future plans. These few short words were enough to ease Violet's heart, which had been in suspense for several years. She is still alive. That is truly wonderful. Unconsciously, the letter was soaked with tears. Such good news was worth her joyfully weeping. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, a knocking sound came from outside the door. Come in. Entering was old Zhang. By doctor, I came to inform you that this afternoon at 2 o'clock, the health clinic will have a cultural art troupe performing model plays. All right. In the afternoon, Violet finished her work and went to the square with her colleagues to watch the performance. Just as she was about to sit down, she heard someone calling out, a colleague from the cultural art troupe has fainted. We need a doctor to take a look. Her doctor colleague was already pregnant, so Violet had to go by herself. After all, there were only 2 doctors here. When Violet arrived backstage, she saw a girl in a costume lying on a bed made of 2 benches. When she clearly saw the person's face, she was even more shocked. Jenny. Commander Ma from the cultural art troupe asked in confusion, do you know each other? Violet nodded and went to check on Jenny's condition. Did she eat today? Commander Ma had. She eats very little every day to maintain her figure. And today she hasn't eaten at all. Violet sighed. It's due to low blood sugar. After giving Jenny glucose to replenish her nutrition, she slowly recovered. Jenny was also surprised that when she woke up, she could see Violet. She is more mature and composed than a few years ago. Her short hair from the battlefield has grown to her waist, giving her an intellectual beauty. You saved me again. Yes, actually. Seeing Jenny here, Violet was happy. It meant that Jenny had taken her words to heart. Violet said to Commander Ma, you all go ahead with the performance. I'll keep an eye on things here. Only then did Commander Ma feel reassured to arrange the performance. Violet asked her, when are you leaving Wolf's Tooth Mountain? Jenny thought for a moment. I left not long after you did. What made you suddenly come to terms with it? Violet asked her again. Jenny let out a sigh. Domingo has repeatedly rejected me. He said if I don't go back, he might as well die on the battlefield. This is clearly what I should be saying. Yet it was Domingo who said it. He is threatening to die. I can't really let him die, can I? Violet clicked her tongue. This Domingo surprisingly learned to go against the grain, walking Jenny's path, leaving Jenny with no way out. Then Jenny's voice became aggrieved again. You must be very pleased. My imposing Domingo is forcing a little girl like me to the brink of despair for you. Violet smiled gently. What am I pleased about? I've been back for so long. Jenny was just being stubborn, pouting and not speaking. Violet also wisely said, mentioning Jenny's situation. Why aren't you eating? Don't you know that not eating can lead to malnutrition and low blood sugar? It's not good. Violet never expected that to be the answer. You can eat at Wolf's Tooth Mountain. What do you eat in your group that makes you unable to eat? Jenny helplessly replied, I don't know. After coming back I just can't eat many things. They all taste bad. The best meal was that night we moved to the Wolf's Tooth Mountain Ditch Medical Station, when we all had dinner together. I thought that meal was particularly delicious. Of course, because that meal was consumed after extreme fatigue and hunger. The food is actually the same. The difference lies in the mood and environment, Violet explained. Jenny let out a bitter smile. Yeah, you know, sometimes I really feel that the days in the cultural art troupe are quite dull. I still miss the times we spent together on the battlefield. Violet did not expect Jenny to say that. She thought Jenny should really dislike her, because from Jenny's perspective, she was not only her rival but also always very harsh towards her. In the past, she was always aggrieved in front of her. You actually miss me. How strange. Jenny knew that Violet wouldn't believe if you don't believe it. That's fine. My thoughts are very precious. And being able to share a bit of what I give to Domingo with you is already your good fortune. Violet rolled her eyes. Then you might as well keep it all for your Domingo. You, unappreciative. Jenny got angry and turned away. But the next moment, her hand was pulled back by Violet. What are you doing? Immediately, she saw Violet applying iodine with a cotton ball. Having been a battlefield nurse, how could she not know what this was for? I don't want in for. Violet didn't care about her. Go ahead and move around. When the blood spurts out, you'll have to stop it yourself. There was no choice. Jenny was forcibly hooked up to the floor. Violet looked at her pale face. Get some sleep. I'll keep watch here. She must be exhausted after coming all this way. Jenny was left speechless by Violet's mood swings, so she decided to take advantage of the times when she was being nice and quickly fell asleep. That night, Jenny insisted on sharing a dorm with Violet. The conditions in the border town are poor. Even now, it's still lit by kerosene lamps. Violet, after a long day, just wanted to sleep as soon as she lay down. But Jenny wanted to pull her into conversation. Violet, do you know? I used to not understand what was so good about you that Domingo couldn't forget you. Now I actually think you are indeed worth it. Violet, feeling drowsy, you've become discerning. Jenny snorted in response. I've never seen someone so narcissistic. I'm just curious. You clearly come from a rural background and have little experience. How is it that you can be so understanding and composed? Her tone was genuinely puzzled. Violet was almost asleep, but she was awakened by Jenny's words. This Jenny really liked to make a complete turnaround in her speech. Poor children grow up early. With your naivety, you would have been sold by your parents to earn a bride price for my younger brother. What? Are there really such parents in the world? Jenny said, somewhat angrily. Violet smiled and said, what a coincidence. I do have such parents. Do you think I wanted to leave the village with you? If I didn't marry Domingo and stayed there, my fate would be to be sold repeatedly. Speaking of this, Jenny still didn't understand. I want to marry him so much but have no chance. Why don't you want him? Violet thought for a moment. This question. Let me think about how to answer you. She really hadn't figured out how to say it. Do you believe in dreams? Violet straightforwardly asked her. Jenny turned over to face Violet. I had a dream, in which I ended up marrying Domingo. Unfortunately, no matter how I tell him, he doesn't believe it. Violet felt a tremor in her heart. What else did you dream about? Jenny's voice floated in the darkness. I dreamed that I married him but wasn't happy. You know, for a long time, I wanted to be someone like you. I thought that the closer I got to you, Perhaps he would fall in love with me. Later I realized it wasn't true. It seems that no matter whether you love him or not, he loves you. Violet. You are truly fortunate. Is having a man's love really happiness? Violet asked Jenny. In any case, she didn't think so. She believed that having things gained step by step on her own was true happiness. Whether it is the job of a doctor or the peaceful life I have now. Jenny let out a humph. Talking to you is really boring. My dad loves me, so I can have everything. He is a man. How can that not be considered happiness? Violet adjusted her blanket. Your dad loves you because you are his daughter. If someone else were his daughter, he would love her too. Actually, I should be envious of you. You have the capital to do as you please. Hearing Violet say this, Jenny was finally happy. Humph. I knew you were jealous of me. Although Jenny was quite annoying when she spoke, Violet found her rather cute. In a daze, Violet seemed to hear Jenny still saying something. The next morning, Violet was about to call Jenny, but she found that Jenny's bed was neatly made, and there was a note left behind. Sister Violet, I hope you and Domingo can end up together. Remember to find me when you come to Beijing. My parents are very grateful for your care of me on the battlefield, and they are eager to meet you. Suddenly, a wave of bitterness and warmth surged in Violet's heart. This little brat. Really? The next few days were not too busy. The dean was calling out to Violet, "Bye, Dr. Bye. It's rare to be free. Let's go to the cafeteria tonight and make some dumplings. The winter solstice is coming soon." Violet whispered to the dean. "Shoo, Dean, we can't say not busy." She and her colleagues discovered a law: whenever they felt not busy and wanted to sneak a rest, a patient would immediately arrive. The dean knew this all too well, nodding repeatedly. I forgot. I won't say it anymore." Just as the two were about to head to the cafeteria, they heard the guard shouting, "Dean, Dr. Bai, there's an emergency patient." Violet glared at the dean. He was a kind old man, smiling apologetically. "Come on, let's go take a look." But as soon as she entered the emergency room, Violet was taken aback. "How did you two end up here?" Unable to hold back, she asked another question. "What happened to you?" The two people in front of her, covered in wounds, were none other than Jordan and Domingo. Violet. As soon as Domingo saw Violet, he forgot everything else. He stood up, wanting to embrace Violet, but when he remembered he was covered in blood and mud, he lowered his hands, and his hands were still bleeding. Seeing Violet, Jordan was also happy, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the dean. "Dean, the dean is quite a person." He supported Jordan. "You brat. You've finally come back." Jordan was originally the doctor of Suna River Town, working under the dean. Seeing that he was still alive, the dean could only feel happy. A curtain separated the two. Violet quickly took out iodine to clean Domingo's wound. "You still haven't answered me. How did this happen?" Domingo furrowed his brow slightly in pain. "The war in our area has come to a pause. The organization ordered us to return home for a month of rest before proceeding to another battlefield. On the way back, the car had an accident, and Jordan and I survived. But we got lost. After wandering in the mountains for several days, we were finally discovered by hunters." His voice was weary yet gentle. Violet noticed that some of his wounds had already begun to rot. "You'll have to cut away this flesh to let it regrow, and it will be very painful." A difficult smile broke through Domingo's blood-stained face. "Seeing you makes the pain go away." The man in front of her, whom she had been separated from for so long, evoked a feeling reminiscent of the early days when they were together. Back then, Domingo would say these things to amuse himself. Violet felt a slight stir in her heart, her hand feeling a little heavier. Domingo instantly gasped, raising his eyes to see Violet's smile at the corner of her lips. He hadn't seen Violet smile at him for a long time. "Violet, when did you become so ruthless?" "Today." Violet quickly cleaned and stitched up his wounds. "I have to say, Domingo is a tough guy. His body is almost covered in dense scars. Some of them were ones she had seen before on Wolf's Tooth Mountain, while others were new. Have you been hurt again in the past 2 years?" Violet examined these shocking scars. Domingo could hear the concern in her tone, and a sense of joy welled up in his heart. It seemed that during their time apart, Violet had become less resistant to him. Is there any fighting without injuries? Didn't you also get hurt from time to time during your years as a medic? I'm fine. Even though he said that, Violet still checked him thoroughly, inside and out, and only after confirming that he indeed had only external injuries did she secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Strange. What am I even worried about? Aside from these two incoming patients, no one else came today. Jordan was able to walk and chose to go home at the first opportunity. Violet escorted him to the door. Captain, I'm so glad you're back. I was still waiting for you to take me to visit Suna River Town. Jordan noticed that Violet had been here for a while and seemed no longer as suppressed as she was on the battlefield. Is it because of Domingo? He felt a bit uncomfortable inside. I will stay for a while. There will be opportunities. Just then, he saw Domingo walking out with a cane. Jordan, we are brothers who have shared life and death. I will need you to take me and my fiancé out together. Jordan, being a man himself, certainly knows that Domingo is now declaring his claim over Violet. They were once engaged, but I have always lagged a step behind. Okay. After saying that, I glanced at Violet and said, I'm leaving. Then, I slowly walked away from the health clinic. Violet turned back. You said that on purpose, didn't you? Domingo raised an eyebrow. Not denying, there's nothing I can do. He likes you. You're talking nonsense. Violet doesn't believe that Jordan has a purely platonic friendship with her. Moreover, the captain has never shown the slightest affection towards himself. You'd better not believe it. Violet. My leg hurts. Domingo looked at him pitifully. Violet helplessly had to take him into the ward first. Jordan returned home, and his Aunt Amy was so happy that she wiped away a tear. Jordan, you finally came back properly. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know how to explain it to your parents. Jordan was being helped to bed by his aunt. Aunt, did you receive the letter I wrote? Amy nodded repeatedly. Then why didn't you receive it? Dr. Bice sent it back. She has treated me and your uncle for free many times over the years. I heard you took care of him on the battlefield. You should be grateful to us. Hey, Jordan, I see that the doctor is still single. How about I go talk to him for you? Hearing this, Jordan felt a wave of bitterness in his heart. No need. Aunt, I came back this time with my fiancé. Her fiancé is a company commander. I can't compare. Hearing her nephew say this, Amy didn't persuade him further. What a pity. But the doctor has a good heart and is beautiful. She is more than worthy of a company commander. It all depends on whether that company commander is worthy of her. As she spoke, Amy looked at her nephew with regret in her eyes. You take a good rest. I'll go make dumplings. It's winter solstice today. You came back just in time. She went to make dumplings, and Jordan sighed, closing his eyes to rest. In the evening, Amy delivered some steamed dumplings to the health clinic. After returning, she closed the doors and windows. Sitting across from Jordan, I just went to deliver dumplings and happened to see by the doctor with a tall guy in the ward. I asked around and found out that's the company commander you mentioned. They look well matched. Jordan coughed violently upon hearing this, and Amy quickly poured a glass of water for her nephew. Take your time eating. Health clinic. Patient room. Domingo was like a paralytic, his hands just lying on the blanket. Violet. I'm hungry. I want to eat dumplings. Violet. Seeing his shameless look, didn't want to indulge him. I'll find the dean to check on your hands. How come you suddenly can't eat by yourself? As she spoke, she turned to leave, but Domingo grabbed her wrist. Violet looked at her wrist and heard Domingo let out a low chuckle. Seeing you about to leave, I suddenly feel better. It's truly a medical miracle. You are at least a company commander. Yet you act so shamelessly, Violet said irritably. Domingo pulled her down to sit in front of the bed, a smirk on his lips. I'm not being unreasonable. You simply ignore me. I only act unreasonable in front of you. Violet shifted her gaze to him. He still had that chiseled jaw and starry eyes, the very face that had once captivated her heart. After being reborn, she truly no longer had him in her heart. However, After experiencing life and death again, she found that those persistent pasts were likely missed opportunities, and she didn't know how to deal with these feelings. Domingo, when are you leaving? Violet asked. Domingo's once bright eyes suddenly lost their light. Do you still not want to be with me? That's not what I meant. Violet thought for a moment and said, you still have to go to the front lines. We will continue to be apart. What exactly are you hoping for by pursuing me so relentlessly? Domingo's gaze grew heavier. I want to be with the person I love. Violet, can you please stop being so stubborn? Violet, if I had known that what I just said sounded unpleasant, I wouldn't have retorted. Open Amy's food container. The dumplings now are not as rich as they were after the millennium. Just bits of lard mixed with vegetable filling. In the 60s, most people were eating chaff and wild vegetables. Being able to have these was already quite good. Violet dipped a dumpling in vinegar and fed it to Domingo, who knew. Domingo turned his face away, looking sulky. If you don't eat it, I will. Saying this, Violet stuffed it into her own mouth. Delicious. Hey, after a long day, these fragrant and hot dumplings are really tasty. Domingo was indeed hungry, and seeing Violet like this, his anger dissipated. Who treats a patient like this? Upon hearing this, Violet picked up the dumpling, dipped it in vinegar, and fed it to him again. He ate without hesitation. The taste is really good. In this way, the relationship between the two had broken the ice. But Violet did not agree to Domingo's request, and Domingo no longer pursued it so eagerly. The spring festival has arrived, and the entire town is filled with the festive spirit of the new year. This place is too remote, so remote that it feels as if it has been forgotten by the Cultural Revolution. She even had an impulse to stay here forever, fearing that once she returned to the Central Plains, everything would change. Due to the heavy snow, it was inconvenient for Domingo to go back, so after informing the organization and his family, he simply decided to stay here for the new year. The dean quite likes Domingo because he is diligent. Ever since he recovered from his injury, he helps with whatever needs to be done in the yard. It's still those who have been to the battlefield who work efficiently. The dean looked at Domingo, who was moving the coal stove, and cheerfully said to Violet, this kid is quite good, treats you well, and you're not getting any younger. You might want to consider it. Violet brushed the snowflakes off the dean's shoulders. As a dean, why are you always urging me to find a partner? Seeing her impatience, the dean pouted and said, I'm doing this for your own good. During the time spent with the dean, Violet had long regarded him as her elder. She hurriedly reassured, I know. I will think about it. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, Sooner River townspeople all came out to celebrate the new year. Domingo was wearing a military coat, walking down the street alongside Violet, who was dressed in a cotton coat. Doctors and soldiers have always been respected in this small town, but the people of Sooner River only knew Violet, so everyone hurried to wish Violet Happy New Year. Dr. Bye. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! Violet replied one by one. Some people also asked, Dr. Bye, is this your partner? Violet was just about to deny it when she heard Domingo say, yes. Happy New Year! Incredible. The partner of Dr. Bye is a soldier. So handsome. He and our Dr. Bye are indeed a match. Violet did not refute or clarify. Having such a man by her side was indeed quite impressive. Everyone has a sense of vanity. Why not indulge in it a little? As they walked along, there were sounds of laughter and joy, and someone insisted on giving Violet sweet potatoes. Violet reluctantly accepted after repeatedly declining. He turned around and handed it to Domingo. Peel this for me. Domingo smiled gently and took it. I knew you would eventually take it. I remember you love roasted sweet potatoes. It's hard to refuse such kindness. In small places, this is how human relationships work, Violet corrected. The two were playfully bantering when they ran into Jordan. A girl, looking younger than Violet, was beside him. Captain, you're out shopping too. Violet stepped forward to greet. Domingo followed slowly. Are you and your partner out shopping, Captain Jordan? After a while, Jordan seemed to have managed his emotions. This is Lily, my aunt's niece, who is here to stay for a while. Lily, this is Dr. Bye. This is Captain Ku. Jordan introduced Lily's identity, and did not deny that she was his partner. Hello, Dr. Bai. Hello, Captain Ku. Lily was charming and delightful. Violet liked her at first sight. Hello. Happy New Year! Would you like to take a walk together? Domingo asked. Jordan did not refuse. Okay. So the four of them paired off and strolled through the streets until noon, when they each went their separate ways. As he was leaving, Jordan asked Violet, the organization wants to transfer you back to your original health clinic. What do you think? This information came as a surprise, and Violet momentarily did not know how to respond. Are we going back to the battlefield? Jordan shook his head. There is currently no shortage of personnel at the battlefield. Domingo glanced at Jordan but said nothing. After the new year, Violet would embark on her journey home, while Domingo would set off on his expedition. He was going back to the battlefield. On the day of their farewell, Violet went to see him off and put the scarf she had knitted for him around his neck. In fact, in her past life, she had woven a scarf just like this one to give to Domingo. At that time, he often wore it when he was in Water Buffalo Village, but he left it behind in the rush to go to war. Later, Violet kept that scarf with her, as if he were still by her side. Come back alive. Violet looked up at him. Once again parting, she realized they had returned to the beginning. The difference was that this time, she held something back. Domingo was much taller than her. Patting her head, all right. If I don't come back, you should find a good person to marry. At least someone better than me. Violet smiled and said, okay. Domingo left, and Violet went back as well. The county hospital was established in Yunshan County, where the original county traditional Chinese medicine hospital and epidemic prevention station were merged into the county hospital. Violet became a surgeon at this hospital. Upon returning, Violet realized that Suna River Town was more like a secluded paradise, though barren, due to its border location, while the Central Plains had long fallen into poverty. Once back, it was impossible to remain an outsider. The medical activities at the county hospital were constantly disrupted by the fervent Cultural Revolution movement. Once upon a time in the countryside, Violet, I didn't realize it, but now I find that the Red Guards in the city are crazier than ever. Even if a patient is seriously injured and needs emergency treatment, the Red Guards insist on stopping people to conduct inspections. Several times, patients did not survive the inspections and ended up dying at the hospital entrance. Everyone dared to be angry but did not dare to speak out. Here, no matter what your identity is, as long as you dare to oppose the mainstream ideology, you are labeled a counter-revolutionary. You will be subjected to a black hat punishment, paraded in shackles, and spat upon by thousands. On this day, the second young lady of the village chief's family, Water Buffalo, had a high fever, and a group of Red Guards came smelling the scent, blocking the way and not allowing anyone to enter. The village chief turned red with anger and said, "What do you mean? You've delayed my daughter's treatment. Do you believe I will fight you to the end?" This only excited the Red Guards further, who shouted at the village chief, "You threatening us is like threatening a great leader. What kind of bandit mentality is this? What kind of capitalist lady is your daughter?" As they pushed and shoved, the little girl was knocked to the ground, letting out a clear cry. When Violet and the others came out, what they saw was a pool of blood. The village chief's family was fighting with several Red Guards, blood streaming everywhere. Seeing the medical staff come out, the village chief shouted at them, "Violet, save my daughter, please!" Violet noticed that the little girl's forehead was bleeding from a cut. But at that moment, with the Red Guards in charge, no one dared to be the first to rush out. Violet also pondered for a long time, looking at the surrounding medical staff. They were all anxious but dared not step forward. Human nature is to seek benefits and avoid harm. Yet she still mustered her courage and approached with a smile. "Hello everyone. There are still so many patients here. Why don't we let them go in first?" Violet was beautiful, with a bright smile, and the Red Guard she spoke to seemed a bit lax. But the other Red Guards seemed intent on enforcing their authority to the utmost. "We are enforcing the law. Do you want to obstruct the law?" Violet waved her hands repeatedly. No, that's absolutely not my intention. It's just that the patients cannot be delayed. If anything happens, it could harm your reputations, and that would be counterproductive, wouldn't it? Violet's colleague tugged at her white coat, trying to urge her to step back, but she couldn't step back now. She had to either take the patient inside or be denounced by the Red Guards. But Violet didn't know that these Red Guards were now like little emperors, and even the county chief was not enough for them to criticize. In the next moment, the Red Guards pushed her back. This doctor, have problematic thoughts. This is serious. Even the hospital has reactionaries now. They pointed at the doctors, signaling them not to interfere. Take this family and this doctor with problematic thoughts away. As they spoke, the Red Guards went to drag Violet and the village chief's family. The people around just watched, some even mocking. She always likes to show off. Now she knows how serious it is, right? Don't say that. Dr. Bai is also doing it for the patients. This doctor is a good person. But what a pity. How can good people survive these days? Good people can't make it. These people devour others. Violet struggled as the Red Guard kicked her in the stomach, knocking her to the ground, and she gasped in pain. You have a problem with your thoughts, and you dare to resist. Just as the Red Guard was about to slap down, the one who was hitting was blocked by a small, delicate hand. Stop it! That voice. Violet looked up, and to her surprise Jenny was there. How did she end up here? Does she not know these people are Red Guards? The Red Guards, seeing a young girl daring to block their way, were filled with anger. Where did this reactionary come from? He was about to grab Jenny when he heard Jenny call out behind her, Commander Mao. Look, someone is disturbing the order of the hospital. A middle-aged man in military uniform walked over, followed by others dressed similarly. The Red Guards in Yunshan County were not very large in scale, mostly consisting of students who had graduated from middle school, high school, and university. Organized spontaneously, they held the quotations in their hands, their young minds already rigid. But ultimately, they were just a spontaneous organization without a systematic affiliation. As soon as Commander Mao arrived, the Red Guards looked slightly dismayed. We are enforcing the law. Commander Mao waved his hand, and the people below pushed the Red Guards aside, allowing the common folk to seek medical treatment. Jenny stepped forward to help Violet up. Are you okay? Violet shook her head and got up to check on the village chief's daughter's condition. She was about to faint. Jenny, thank you, but I need to save someone first. Jenny nodded. Go ahead. I'll take care of this. With these people maintaining order, the hospital began to function again. Treatments were administered. Rescues were made. And it wasn't until late at night that Violet finally finished her shift, dragging her weary body back to the dormitory. Violet heard someone calling her at the entrance. Are you hungry? Jenny was holding some food and looking at her. The Jenny in front of her was dressed in a beautiful dress, completely contrasting with her own disheveled appearance. But she was genuinely happy for Jenny. I'm hungry. The two sat at the stone table of the county hospital, eating the bread that Jenny had brought. In this era, whether in the previous life or this one, she had never eaten bread. It wouldn't be until 2,000 years later that food would improve. But the difference between the rich and the ordinary is this significant. Today's situation is too dangerous. I estimate I can only help you like this once. These people are getting crazier. You shouldn't stick your neck out in the future. Understand? Jenny has grown quite a bit in the past 6 months and has started to advise Violet. Violet nodded appreciatively. I'll remember. I'll control myself next time. But today that person is from my hometown village. He brought his child to see a doctor. It's too pitiful. In such chaos now. If you don't hide away, it will be you who suffers. You need to save more people. But first, protect yourself. Jenny quickly advised her again, then added, this is what you taught me, to take good care of yourself. If it were you, you wouldn't understand. Violet, it's not that one wouldn't understand. It's just that when it comes to teaching others the great principles, it's merely a matter of talking. But when it happens to oneself, nothing else matters. Humans are such complex beings. What are you doing here? Violet changed the subject. Jenny pulled out a letter. After helping you today, I will go back. I just happened to receive a letter from Domingo addressed to my dad. And there's another one for you that I was asked to deliver. Take a look. Did Domingo actually find a way to send himself a letter? Violet took it, unfolded it, and saw Domingo's strong and vigorous handwriting. Violet, as I read your letter, I hear your voice. I have heard that the situation at home is chaotic from the battlefield. Please remember to take care of yourself. I look forward to the day we meet again. Domingo. There aren't many words, but every word is filled with emotion. For some reason, Violet's eyes turned red, and tears fell onto the paper. It made Jenny feel heartbroken as well. You were so cold to him before. I didn't expect to see you cry for him. Violet embarrassedly wiped her tears. I couldn't control myself. If only she could have received Domingo a letter. She wouldn't have missed that lifetime. Violet put away the letter and looked at the red-eyed Jenny. Why are your eyes red? I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been looking at you. I was thinking, if I hadn't shown up, would you all have had so many troubles? Jenny murmured. Violet smiled gently. It has nothing to do with you. When you weren't around, I had a dream. I dreamed that after he went to war, he disappeared without a trace. I waited for him a lifetime, only to find out before I died that he had already married and had 3 generations. She lowered her eyelids and said, I am afraid it will really happen, although it has already happened. Violet said this. Jenny understood. No wonder. That year when you ran off the train, I was thinking, am I really that lethal? You actually ran away overnight. With a pft. Violet couldn't help but laugh. So many times. I think you're quite adorable. Of course. I am the little cutie. Violet also held her hand. Given how adorable you are, I won't hold it against you for leaving without a word in Suna River Town. Jenny stuck out her tongue. At that time, I still didn't know how to face you. But now I can. I also know what it feels like to love and be loved. Violet raised an eyebrow. Do you have a partner? Jenny nodded. When you have a day off next month, come to my house for dinner. I talk about you every day at home, and my parents are eager to meet you. Is your dad today's Commander Mao? Violet felt a bit embarrassed to go, wanting to refuse but unable to bear disappointing Jenny's kindness. Jenny nodded again. You must come. It's getting late. I have to go home. As she spoke, she stood up and walked outside, completely giving Violet no chance to refuse. Violet could only agree, understood. So she returned to the dormitory. In the dormitory, Violet read the letter sent by Domingo over and over again, tears sliding down her cheeks time and again. She knew why she felt sad. Or rather, it wasn't sadness, but regret. Soon, the village chief's second young lady recovered, and on the day of her discharge, the village chief expressed his gratitude in various ways. But he also advised, your parents are getting older. You should come back to visit. Violet nodded perfunctorily. I will definitely find time. But I am quite busy with work. If the village chief really wants to thank me, I hope he won't tell my parents about seeing me. The village chief paused for a moment and said a word of good, then left with the second young lady. After seeing off the village chief's family, Violet threw herself back into her work. This life is much more fulfilling than the last. A month later, Violet brought some gifts and headed to the address given by Jenny. Just as she arrived at the door of Mao's home and was about to knock, suddenly her gifts were grabbed by someone. You little brat. Buying such nice things for yourself, as if you don't care about your parents at all. Violet was taken aback, and when she turned around, she saw by father scolding angrily. How did you follow me here? By father had aged a lot, but his expression hadn't changed at all. If it weren't for the village chief telling me, I would have really thought you were dead out there. He looked at Violet, who was dressed decently. So you've made it big out there, and you don't even care about your parents anymore. We worked hard to raise you, and this is how you repay us. Violet coldly laughed to herself, not expecting that after so many years, her father still only wanted to exploit her value. She walked in the opposite direction, not wanting to argue at Jenny's door, but by father tightly grasped her wrist. Violet wanted to shake him off but couldn't, anger rising in her heart. You might as well consider me dead outside. What do you want to find me for? Just say it directly. Violet didn't want to get entangled with him too much. Hearing his daughter say this, by father smirked. I came to take you back to get married. A few years ago, you were pursued by Captain Ku but refused to marry. causing our family to lose a golden son-in-law. Your younger brother is getting married, and we borrowed money from someone. That person is Old Song from the neighboring village, who has never married in his life and is someone who knows how to care for others. There's nothing wrong with you marrying over. Moreover, the person is willing to wait. I told them you were working outside, and they have stubbornly waited for so long. Aren't you moved? Violet looked at the man in front of her, who was nominally her father, with disgust. You give money to your son to marry a wife, yet you want me to marry? What sense does that make? My father sneered, a girl is born to be a financial burden. If it weren't for the thought of having a son in the future, I would have drowned you long ago. Otherwise, the money spent on raising you could have been used to marry your younger brother a wife. These things, my mother has said before. When Violet was born, her grandmother and father both thought raising her was a losing investment and considered drowning her instead. Many people in the countryside do this. Regardless, this was still my mother's child, and she couldn't bear to do it. So she said that since they were going to have a son anyway, they might as well keep her to collect a bride price, which would be useful for marrying off her son in the future. At first, perhaps my mother intended to save her life, but later, it truly became as she said. Violet was merely a tool for her to marry off her son. Violet bit down hard on my father's hand. In pain, he quickly shook her off. You beast. I truly regret having given birth to you. At this point, he sat down on the ground and shouted, Murder! My daughter has committed murder. Jenny lived in a large courtyard, and soon people came to watch. Mao's home people also came out upon hearing the noise. Violet. Jenny, seeing her, hurried over and asked, What happened? Violet was just about to explain when Bai stared at Jenny with eyes shining like stars. This young lady, please have pity on me and persuade my daughter not to neglect her parents. They found her a good match, and she refuses to go back no matter what. Violet directly said, My parents sold me again, taking money from others to marry their son a wife. They had talked about these things before. Jenny understood immediately. So that's how it is after all this time. Trafficking in people is illegal, and since this is a military district, we'll just take you directly to the police station. As soon as she said this, Bai's father quickly got up. She is my daughter. What kind of transaction is that? Violet coldly laughed. It's not up to you to decide. Let's go to the police station. Bai's father, after all, is from the countryside. He only recognizes that a higher official can oppress the lower ones, and he left reluctantly. Before leaving, he was still cursing, You wait for me. You can't escape. Violet for a moment felt a bit powerless. She shouldn't have played the good person, shouldn't have gone to save the village chief's family, and wouldn't have left such future troubles. But she is a healer, and the foremost duty of a healer is to save lives. Some things are very difficult to have both ways. Bai's father has passed away. Jenny asked everyone to disperse and took Violet to her home. Her home is about 80 square meters. The decoration style is bright and warm, a style that Violet only saw after the year 2000. One can't help but once again lament the disparity between the rich and the poor. Upon entering, the first to greet Violet was Mao's mother, who wore a camel-colored sweater, exuding a gentle and dignified presence. So this is Violet. Welcome to my home. Mao's mother wrapped her arm around Violet's shoulder and led her inside. Violet smiled and greeted her. Hello, Auntie. This is a little something I brought. Mao's mother looked at the pastries she was holding, knowing they probably cost her half a month's salary, and quickly took them. You shouldn't have brought anything. At that moment, Commander Mao walked out of the study. Violet. Hello. As he spoke, Violet saw him reaching out his hand towards her. Violet hurriedly stepped forward to shake hands. Commander Mao. Hello! In that situation that day, you, a young girl, dared to step forward. You truly are the girl that Domingo has his eyes on. So brave, Commander Mao praised. Violet was taken aback by the compliment. How did she end up involved with Domingo? If it weren't for Jenny and your timely arrival, I would have probably been taken away. Violet's self-mockery. And there will be endless troubles ahead. Her loneliness was noticed by the people of Mao's home. Commander Mao just now observed everything happening downstairs from the balcony and patted Violet's shoulder. Violet, there are times when one should just do good deeds without asking about the future. Jenny pulled her down onto the sofa. Dad, you always say such things. If she didn't think 10 steps ahead, she would have been sold by her father long ago. There's no way to save me from this predicament. Violet smiled. Actually, Commander Mao is right. If I don't do this, my conscience won't let me be at peace. Why not simply not ask about the future? Jenny pouted. Can't you tell I'm trying to speak up for you? Of course I can tell. Mao's mother watched the scene with joy. Since we were young, we've spoiled Jenny Mao so much, never listening to anyone. Yet, unexpectedly, she only listens to you. This child has liked Domingo since she was little, doing silly things all day for Domingo. I really don't know how you managed to turn her around. Commander Mao, seeing them at the tea party, went into the kitchen. You all chat first. I'll make a few of my signature dishes. Violet then replied Mao's mother. In fact, she understands the reasoning. It's just difficult to put into practice. But on the battlefield, many things are beyond her control. It wasn't me who changed her. It was everything she experienced that transformed her. She is a good girl. Auntie, you are a good mother, and you have a good daughter. Mao's mother, seeing Violet with such sweet words, felt her affection grow a little more. Come over to play at our house often. I like seeing you. Okay. Violet agreed immediately. In fact, when she saw Mao's mother, the first thing that came to her mind was her own mother. She thought, if her mother had also been born and understood like Mao's mother, she would surely love her. It is not that the mother does not love herself, but that the environment and her understanding have limited her love. During dinner, Jenny placed a cake on the table. Violet was just about to ask if today was Jenny's birthday when she heard her say, Violet, happy birthday! My own birthday? Upon careful reflection, it truly is this day. But she hasn't celebrated her birthday in a long time. How did you know? Violet asked in surprise. Jenny, with a charming smile, said, don't worry about it. Commander Mao even pushed a large box in from outside. This is the gift we prepared for you. Go ahead and open it. Violet looked at all of this in disbelief. They were not related to her, so why were they being so kind? I can't accept this. Jenny ignored her and took her over. Open it for me. Quickly accept it. Otherwise, wouldn't that be wasting our good intentions? Mao's mother also urged with a smile. Violet finally raised her trembling hand and slowly untied the ribbon on the gift box. Just as she was about to open it, a person stood up from the box. Happy birthday, Violet! It was actually Domingo. Violet's pupils constricted. What are you doing here? There was a faint scar on his face, as if it had been there for a long time. Domingo, without a second thought, embraced her. I have completed my mission for the country. Now it's time to fulfill my promise to you. Hearing this, Violet's eyes instantly filled with tears. Are you still leaving? Domingo shook his head, holding her tighter. We have withdrawn. I won't be leaving for now. It was only then that Violet realized the war had achieved a significant victory, and Domingo had to withdraw due to his injuries. Jenny deliberately cleared her throat. Can you all please consider my feelings? Do I have to cry for you to see? Violet then let go of Domingo, and Domingo had no choice but to release her as well. He turned to Commander Mao. Commander Mao, I have lived up to your expectations. Commander Mao patted Domingo on the shoulder, as expected from a soldier I trained. Domingo had a brief conversation with Commander Mao and then prepared to take Violet back. Violet expressed her gratitude to the Mao family repeatedly before the two finally left. Walking down the street, it was autumn once again, and the phoenix trees shed their leaves. When are you coming back? Violet wrapped her coat tighter and asked Domingo. I arrived yesterday. His voice was much hoarser. Violet asked in confusion, what happened to your voice? Domingo smiled. I strained my vocal cords a bit, but it's nothing serious. By the way, I was just in the box, unaware that your dad was bothering you again. Violet helplessly replied, he wants money, but I just don't want to give it to him. Once I open that door, it will be a bottomless pit. He will make my younger brother drain my life forever. Just wait a little longer. Wait for what? Domingo asked. Violet did not answer, but asked him, "What are your plans for coming back?" Domingo thought for a moment. First, I need to arrange the soldiers under my command, and secondly, I need to resolve the major issues in my life. He stopped in his tracks, looked at Violet seriously and said, "Violet, I want to marry you." Violet felt her heart skip a beat. Then it began to race. "Do you still want to be with me? I dream of it every day. I promise you." Water Buffalo Village. Violet went back, returning with Domingo. The two walked hand in hand through the village, and everyone was taken aback. The village chief was the first to be puzzled. "Violet, you two have reconciled?" If he remembered correctly, back then Violet was unwilling to be with Captain Ku. Violet nodded, yes. Then Domingo brought Violet back to his home. Domingo's parents passed away early. He was a child supported by Commander Mao, which is why he had known Jenny since childhood. He did not fall in love with the daughter of Mao's military steward, but at Water Buffalo Village, he fell head over heels for the hardworking and vibrant Violet. They went together to pay respects to Domingo's parents, and then Domingo followed Violet back to her home. As soon as they walked into the yard, Violet's father spotted them from a distance. He had originally wanted to shout at Violet, but upon seeing the person beside her, he immediately swallowed his curse. Violet ignored him and went straight into the house. Instead, Domingo pulled out a cigarette from his pocket, handed it to Violet's father, and lit it for him. "Uncle, I brought Violet back to discuss marriage." "Marriage? You still want her?" My father took a sip and almost choked. Domingo's expression darkened as he said, "Back then, there were some misunderstandings between Violet and me, but we have already cleared them up. I heard you secretly arranged a marriage for her." My father was overjoyed to hear this and quickly overturned what he had promised others. "No, I knew you two would work out. How could I bear to casually give my daughter to someone else? Violet is the treasure of our family." Domingo had no patience to listen to him say these things, but since he was from the village and was Violet's nominal father, he couldn't just slap his face directly. Inside, Mother Bai held Violet and cried several times, sobbing and hitting her own thigh. "For all these years, I had no news of you. I thought you were dead. Do you know how worried I've been?" Violet comforted her mother. "It's okay. I'm back now, aren't I?" At this moment, the younger brother Martin excitedly walked from the room to the hall. "Violet is back. If we give her to Zhou Air from the neighboring village, we won't have to pay back the money." As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp voice rang out, "Let's see who dares to take her as payment." Domingo walked in with a serious face, scaring Martin, who hurriedly hid behind by Mother. By Mother also looked puzzled. "What is this?" Violet explained with a smile, "Mom, I've reconciled with Domingo and we are planning to get married." "No way!" By Mother instinctively rejected. Violet furrowed her brow. "Why not?" By Mother said, "Your father has already arranged a marriage for you, just waiting for you to come back and get married. Besides, after the trouble you had with Captain Ku before, how can you still have the face to marry into their family now? Who knows what people will say?" Domingo looked even worse. "Aunt, I don't mind. No one dares to gossip about Violet. Besides, what's so unusual about having some conflicts between partners?" In fact, both he and Violet knew that by Mother's sudden change of attitude was because of Martin. Violet still endured patiently. "Mom, Domingo doesn't mind. I don't mind either. Didn't you all hope for us to be together before? Why is it different now?" This, by Mother stammered, as she didn't dare to say in front of Domingo that they had pushed Violet out for money. Then Bai's father walked in and immediately slapped Bai's mother. "You ignorant woman! Domingo and our family's Violet are a match made in heaven. Now Domingo is the company commander, and Violet is a doctor. There's no shortage of money. So cancel old Song's marriage." Then he flatteringly said to Domingo, "It's just this bride price." Violet has seen through her parents. Every time she feels a bit more affection and fantasy towards her mother, reality would harshly slap her back. The bride price is 150 yuan, and from now on, let's live our lives without any contact. How about that? Violet answered before Domingo. Domingo glanced at Violet, who gestured for her. "Oh, handle it." So she stood behind her. 150. Martin had never seen such a large amount of money. Quickly urging his parents, agree. Would you? I stepped forward to chat with Domingo. But Domingo refused. Oh, look at him. So he could only look at Violet. What's troubling you this time? I'm your father. We're blood relatives. Is it possible to buy you? Oh, be quiet. 200 yuan. Violet refused. Oh, answer him. Instead raising the price. My father still didn't want to give up on Domingo, the cash cow. A full meal was clear enough for him. Just as he was about to refuse, he was interrupted by mother. All right, 200 it is. Violet, 200 yuan when it arrives. And from now on we will have no relationship whatsoever. Bai's eyes were red, and Violet was somewhat unsure of what she was crying about. She simply took out 200 yuan from her bag, placed it on the table, and coldly said, take care of yourselves. I won't be notifying you about the wedding. After saying that, Violet pulled Domingo and left Water Buffalo Village. On the way back to the city, Violet was sitting in Domingo's military jeep, feeling somewhat dazed. What are you thinking about? Domingo asked. Violet looked at the scenery rushing by outside the window. I was thinking, is my mom being sincere or is it intentional? When I just entered the house, she was so worried about me. But in the end, she sold me for 200. Domingo knew she was in a bad mood, so he drove a bit more gently. Love your younger brother more, Violet. We are both people without family to care for us. In the future I will only have you, and you will only have me. We will rely on each other, and that is also good. Dependent on each other. Violet turned to look at the sword-browed and starry-eyed Domingo, feeling a moment of dizziness. Who says we are dependent on each other? We will have our own children, and I will love and protect her, allowing her to shine brightly in the new era. On the day of the wedding, Commander Mao served as the officiant. Mao's mother really liked Violet and, after hearing about her, accepted her as a goddaughter. Thus, Violet naturally became Jenny's older sister. The ever-rebellious Jenny Mao actually only obeyed Violet's discipline. 3 years later, Violet was transferred to the military hospital to serve as a hospital leader. That year, she was already 28 years old, and her child was 2 years old. You are pregnant now, so rest more and go out less. Mao's mother held Violet's daughter Ava in one arm while advising the restless Jenny. Violet checked on Jenny's condition. It's nothing serious. Just stay in bed to protect the pregnancy. And don't run around. Jenny let out a sigh. Being pregnant. I can't do anything now. Ever since Jenny married a scholarly gentleman last year, her life has been going smoothly. Her husband is busy with work, so Jenny moved back to her family's large courtyard. Just right for her pregnancy. Violet comes to see Jenny as soon as she gets off work. What else do you want to do? I told you not to wear shoes with heels, but you wouldn't listen. You almost fell today. Violet sometimes really gets annoyed with Jenny. Hearing Violet's bad tone, Jenny immediately dared not act recklessly. Instead, Ava jumped down from Mao's mother and ran to Jenny's side, hooking her little finger. Auntie, don't be afraid. Ava will protect you and sister. Jenny was suddenly delighted. Haha, did you see that? Violet, your daughter is my shield. But before she could laugh for 3 seconds, she saw Violet shoot a glare at Ava, causing Ava to hurriedly hide in Mao's mother's embrace. Mao's mother couldn't help but chuckle at the scene. Violet, don't be so fierce to Ava. She's still young. If we don't strike now, we'll end up like her aunt. Mao's mother felt Violet was right, so she turned to her and began to criticize Jenny. I will go throw away all your high heels right now. Help! Jenny was at a loss for tears. In the evening, Domingo came to take his wife and daughter home. Walking in the courtyard, Domingo shared with Violet what had happened today. I went to the village for an inspection today and found out your younger brother had a daughter. And then? Violet asked. Domingo teased Ava. I left a little money as a congratulatory gift. It's quite good. He is he, and his descendants are his descendants. 2 years ago, Violet's parents passed away. Actually, before getting married and going back with Domingo, Violet wanted to reconcile with them. After all, they would only have a year left to live. How to put it? Human beings are quite complex. They did indeed give birth to her and provided her with food. In this lifetime, many things have yet to happen. So, although it was said that it didn't matter anymore, for their funeral, Violet and Domingo still returned to give them a grand send-off. But Violet didn't want to have any contact with her own younger brother, and they never got in touch again. Ava leaned on Domingo's shoulder. Daddy, will I have a younger brother? Do you want a younger brother? Domingo asked her. Ava had snow-white skin, big double-folded eyelids, and had been beautiful since childhood. Everyone in the courtyard liked her. She thought seriously for a long time and nodded. I do. Domingo cast a meaningful glance at Violet. If you want one, then persuade your mom to work less and spend more time with me. How can you say that in front of the child? Violet instantly turned crimson. Snatching her daughter from his hands, stop thinking about a younger brother. Have you learned the characters I taught you today? Domingo looked at the two women he loved most in front of him and felt that this life was worth it.